Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, we're hosting the public meeting for the Chesterfield Tareyton Bakers Lane reconstruction project. My name is Jenna Campbell, and I'm the Engineering and Environment Manager for Loyalist Township. I'm hoping that everyone in the audience can hear us. You'll have to forgive us as we just continue to transition. Normally we like having these meetings where we can speak face to face, but obviously with everything going on in the world right now, we can't do that. So we do appreciate those of you who have joined us this evening. I'm going to introduce Joe Gratton, who is our project supervisor, and he'll be undertaking the presentation for this evening. I'm just wondering if someone in the audience might be able to raise their hand just to let me know that you can hear us. Great. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, so Joe is going to go through the presentation, and if anybody has any questions while we're moving through the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand, and I can call on you to speak to us. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Like Jenna said, thank you for coming. My name's Joe Gratton, and I'm the construction project supervisor for Loyalist Township. So I sort of handle taking care of the linear construction projects and answering any questions, that kind of stuff. So a quick outline of the presentation. So a little bit of background on why we're doing the project and what brought it about. We'll provide some key dates, project scope. We'll talk a bit about open cut versus relining, which will make more sense a little further in the presentation. I'll have some conversation about COVID-19 implications or concerns. We'll talk a little bit about the design and how it may affect your individual properties. Some information for residents in the project area, some construction drawings, and then an opportunity to ask questions. If you have questions during the presentation, it's a pretty relaxed format. So I think Jenna will be able to see them at least, but definitely raise your hand or use the chat box, and we can answer them as we're going along. You don't have to wait till the end for questions. If you want to ask a question anonymously, you can also email to either Bailey or myself. There will be contact information at the end, so we'll leave a bit of time at the end. You can email your question, and we can ask it on your behalf, I guess, so that you don't have to ask publicly, and we're also going to be available moving forward at any time, basically. Next slide, please. So the reasons for doing the project, the road, the infrastructure's reached the end of its service life. So we have an asset management plan, and it tracks the age of our assets and a predicted life and when they're scheduled for replacement. And the buried infrastructure on this street has reached that point. Additionally, there's been a number of water main breaks. Some residents may remember a few years ago there was a fairly large one, and then right after they fixed that one, they had another one. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there. So the asset management plan tells us it's likely due for replacement, and then when we do a risk assessment, because we're having water main breaks and that type of thing, it tells us that we are in fact correct with our asset management plan, and it is time to replace this infrastructure. So the project itself is going to include water, sewer, and some drainage upgrades within the right-of-way. And the end result from all of this work will be fewer service interruptions and water main breaks. There'll be improved drainage within the roadside right-of-way. This will help preserve the road base. Obviously, when we do all this work, there'll be new asphalt down. So this will help preserve the road base and make sure the asphalt lasts for its design service life. And then the updated water and sewer infrastructure will provide reliable service for years to come. So no water main breaks or boil water advisories or any terrible things like that. So that's some of the reason behind why we're doing the work. So some key dates for the project. So the RFP is scheduled to close in the spring of 2021. So it should close in April. Now, with all these dates, as everybody knows right now, everything is very unpredictable. So I do want to manage people's expectations that we are providing the information. However, things may change. There's obviously things out of our control, and things may have to move a little bit. But right now, the plan is to close it in April 2021, and we'll bring it to the first council meeting in May for award. From that point, it'll be public knowledge who the contractor is and which option we're going to proceed with. And provided council approves the project, we'll move forward with an estimated start date late May or early July, depending on which option's chosen and how the contractor wants to approach the work. The estimated completion date, late fall 2021. However, some seasonal items may be completed in the spring. One thing, depending on the option, one is a little bit more disruptive than the other. If we do the open cut option, we have written in the contract that the contractor is to phase the work, so they'll do sections at a time. So ideally, the entire area won't be a construction site, and we'll try and keep it to two smaller manageable sections. So this project is being tendered in a little bit of a non-standard way, in that we're providing two options for contractors to submit a proposal for. So the first option is water main and sanitary service relining, which we just call relining. And the second option is full replacement and upgrades to sanitary sewer, water main, and associated structures. And we call that open cut. The final determination on which option we're going to choose is based on a best value within available budget evaluation, which sounds very complicated, but essentially one option has higher upfront costs, but a longer life, and the other one has lower upfront costs, but a shorter life. And there's a calculation we'll do to determine which is the best value within the available budget. Obviously, although we all would like to be driving around in Cadillacs, sometimes it's just not practical from a budget perspective. Regardless of which option is chosen, the ditch reinstatement, driveway culvert, storm sewer updates, and new asphalt service will be completed with both options. And the budget for the project is approximately $2.5 million. And that's funded from a mix of what we call general rate, which is your general tax dollars, and utility rate, which is what you pay on your water and sewer bills. So open cut versus relining. So open cut is full depth removal of the road to access the infrastructure and then replace. And the advantage is it's a longer useful life, but it does have higher upfront costs and it is more disruptive. So recent open cut projects you might be familiar with an Amherst view would be Princeton Place and Briscoe Street. Relining involves access at several points along the area of reconstruction, and the infrastructure is relined with material to replace the inner structure. Currently, it has a shorter useful life, but it does have lower upfront costs and it's much less disruptive. However, some components of the system under this method are not replaced. And some examples you're probably less likely to notice this because it is a lot less disruptive, but some examples we've done recently in Amherst View would be Park Crescent. There was some done on Kildare. Cambridge was a large section that was done. Fairfield Street, I believe. And Sherwood, just on the other side of Chesterfield, was also done. So during the project, obviously we're definitely in uncertain times. The project is considered essential work by the province, or well, I guess by the township and the province, unless things have changed. But if they're following the same criteria as they used last year, it would be considered essential work. For the construction workers on site and the contractors on site, they are expected to have a COVID-19 protocol to follow. We do ask for it in the contract and they have to provide it prior to starting. And we'll review that with them to make sure it's compatible with the township protocols. And for line, that's for both options. All the contractors have to have that. For the relining option for the water portion, the contractor will require access to resident homes to disconnect the water meter. We will ensure there's a strict COVID-19 policy to be followed. And if anyone has specific concerns about this portion, definitely contact myself at the office or Bailey, whose information will also be there. And we can meet in person and discuss and make sure your concerns are addressed. We successfully did 2 projects last year under COVID protocols, and we didn't have any major issues or concerns. So we're confident we can do the project following our protocols. Some project concerns where the work we're planning on doing may impact your properties. Sort of standard common ones. Fire hydrants. So if we choose the open cut option, it will involve moving the water main to the opposite side of the street. So some fire hydrants will be relocated as well to the opposite side of the road. If the relining option is chosen, there may be an opportunity to make minor adjustments to the current hydrant location. So there's some properties that we're aware of where it's almost in the middle of people's driveways. So depending on the location, we may be able to move it slightly one way or the other to improve the location of that hydrant. But any changes we make must comply with the fire code to make sure we have proper spacing from hydrants and access and all of that. If you have a hydrant or you think you might be getting a hydrant and you want to discuss further, definitely contact us. We can meet you on site and definitely walk you through it. There is a page where we get to the plans. However, it would be very difficult to see on the plans online where it is, but we can definitely come out to your property and sort of show you what we're planning. In general, if the hydrants are moving to the opposite side of the road, it would be at the property line between 2 properties in approximately the same location as the current hydrant, just on the opposite side. Ditch reinstatement. So there's a number of areas along Chesterfield where there's no ditch or driveway culverts. And these are going to be reinstated with ditch and driveway culverts. This is the way the subdivision was originally planned. This is the way the drainage is supposed to work for a semi-urban road. The reasoning for having the ditch, the main reason is to is to provide drainage for the stormwater, and it's to keep the road granulars dry, which preserves the life of the road and the asphalt. So they will be reinstated. There's some area in conjunction with that. There's some areas along the way where the shoulders have been widened. These are going to be reinstated to standard width. So it'll be a consistent width along the road. Generally, the areas with widened shoulders are also where the ditch has somewhat disappeared. So the two things sort of go hand in hand. And then driveways, I lost the page. So asphalt and concrete driveways are generally, replaced to the limit of excavation. So when we replace the driveway culverts, it'll be at least to the driveway culvert and a little bit past, so the contractor has room to work. And then we try and find an appropriate place to make the cut. So we make a saw cut so it's a clean joint. And try and find something that makes it reasonable for the paving contractor to match when they reinstate it, so it matches your original driveway. Trees. So depending on the distance from buried infrastructure, so valves, pipes, curb stops, etc., it may be necessary to remove trees that will be damaged during the work. So any tree that is removed, the township has a policy, we will replace the tree. Generally, we replace it with a small maple. We do have a little bit of wiggle room on species, provided it's not some sort of exotic species that can't be found anywhere. And the reason behind it is often during the excavation, the tree roots become damaged, and then it creates a hazard with the tree and it can fall. And obviously we don't want that. So if you have a tree and you're worried about it, definitely contact us and we can have a conversation. I know a number of residents have called in since the letters went out, and we have had some discussion. Some of it will depend what happens during the excavation. So sometimes we can adopt a bit of a wait and see approach, but often it's pretty obvious right off the bat that trees have to be removed. We don't anticipate having to remove a lot. However, I've not been able to see where everyone's curb boxes are. So if your curb box or water shutoff on your lawn is next to a tree, definitely give us a call and we can come out and take a closer look. From what I saw, most of the trees are far back from where we're doing the ditching work and the culverts. So that shouldn't be an issue. It's just if there's valves or something that we can't see. But we definitely would prefer to hear about it sooner, and then we can have these conversations and possibly see what we can do to mitigate. Grass, all areas that we're excavating are going to be reinstated with topsoil and then either hydroseed or sod, depending on the season and erosion risk. So if it's a high flow ditch or something like that, it would have sod at the bottom of the ditch to make sure that we mitigate the erosion hazard. And if an area is done particularly late in the season and we don't think the seed will have time to grow, then sod may be an option. But in general, the plan for disturbed areas is to be hydroseeded. And then landscape features. So there's a number of landscape features along the street. It's a very mature neighborhood. So head walls and landscape features such as driveway curb within the township, right of way that need to be removed for construction, are not going to be replaced. For the driveway curbs, we'll direct the water from the curb or direct the curb towards the ditch. And then any other landscape features, we'll just try and move back as best we can. We're certainly not going to take out anything that we don't need to take out. And again, if you have some concerns, it's probably best to give us a call. We can meet on site and talk about your specific concerns, but definitely we will try to avoid having to damage things unnecessarily. So during construction, I'd be completely honest with you, it will not be a spectacular summer. It will be dusty and there's going to be poor road conditions. That's unfortunately just the nature of construction. Contractually, the contractor does have obligations to provide dust suppressant on the road and grade it and maintain it. Everyone has a different interpretation of what's acceptable. And sometimes the weather conditions just are not favorable or not on our side, I guess. Township staff will be on site during the construction, so anytime the contractor is there. So if you do have a concern, definitely bring it to our attention. We're generally in the white hats, and I think as the project goes along, you'll get to know who we are. But definitely let us know. You can also call the office, and our contact information is on the letters that have gone out at the end of this presentation. And we'll definitely talk to the contractor and try and address any concerns. There will be, oh, I had a few more, sorry. There's going to be some delays during the project. So depending on which options chosen in the scope of work, there may be only access to your property from one direction. So you might, if they're, for example, putting a service across the entire road, you may not, if you're used to driving the full length of Chesterfield, you may have to access from Pittsfield or from Tareyton or from the other end of Chesterfield. We will provide notice as much as possible, and as the project is moving, it should be apparent where these are occurring, and people will sort of start to, we'll see where we're going, and it should be fairly obvious if it'll be closed. For your individual properties, obviously when they're replacing the driveway culverts and things, there'll be periods of time when they have to do the work, you won't have access. The intent is you will be able to park in your driveway every night. However, there will be occasions, just things come up or the way the work is, that may not be possible. And we'll definitely let you know in advance. And if there's people with accommodations, accessibility issues, things like that, again, give us a call. We can definitely work and create alternative access and things like that. We had a project a few years ago where a lady had a hip replacement and was could not walk on any uneven ground or anything like that. And the contractor was fantastic and made an extra entrance for her and took care of things. So nothing to worry about. We'll definitely make sure we can address any concerns. There will be open excavations. The contractor does have to fence them off if they exceed a certain depth. But I would mention or keep in mind it will be a construction site. So we're obviously making sure that they're complying with all their regulatory requirements. However, tripping hazards and those types of things are going to be something to be aware of. Parking will probably be an issue depending on what people are used to. Typically on these projects, people will park on the street in front of their properties between the contractor working and storing materials and the contractor's workers and the residents. Parking is always an issue. We are available to try and mitigate those and make sure that everyone has a place to park and the contractor can still get their work. If they're planning on working on a particular section, they generally talk to the homeowners or leave notices the day before to make sure that no one parks right where they need to excavate a hole or something like that. And regardless of which option is chosen, temporary water will be used to provide potable water to all the properties. You've probably seen this in other areas, but it consists of the blue pipes that are run across lawns, and then depending on the option chosen, the connections are somewhat different, but there's a smaller blue, I don't want to say garden hose because that leaves the wrong impression, but there's a smaller blue hose that's like a garden hose, but it's meant for potable water. And that's used to connect your property either at the curb stop or through your hose bib, depending on which option we choose. This will cause, or to go with this, there'll be a pipe that runs across most driveways, and they will ramp it with granular material to make sure you can get your car over it. Again, if there's any concerns or anything like that, definitely give us a call and we can talk about it. And if you notice any issues with it, please give us a call. We've often had problems where the pipes have been broken, and we definitely would prefer to correct it before we have a break on any of the pipes. So again, yes, as with everything I say, please give us a call if you have any concerns. So I'll just quickly go through it. The drawings are also available on the website. So for those who have managed to find the project page, which if you go to loyalisttownship.ca, I believe it's /project, it will bring you to the projects page. If that doesn't work, if you go to loyalisttownship.ca and then it's business and development, I believe. Sorry, I'll get the wrong tab. Business and development, and then I can't look it up. There's a projects tab, and if you go in there, there's all the projects are listed. Chesterfield will be listed, and the project drawings are in the project page. I believe there's also a link in the letter, so hopefully somewhere that address is there. At the end of the presentation, I will make sure to try and find it. That's probably your best option to see it. There are PDF files there, and you can zoom in and sort of take a look at your whenever you have a chance. And again, if you have questions, we're more than willing to chat. And apparently that's our presentation. If you have any questions, I think there might be a few. I'll try and get to them in a second, but definitely use the hand icon or enter your question in the chat or email it, or give us you can give us a call during office hours at those numbers as well. So I don't know if there was any.
So I thank you, Joe, for that. I did see one question, but the resident has answered that you answered it during the presentation, so that's great. So if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or type into the chat or email, as Joe said. Just to clarify, the website, sorry, I'm just pulling it up. Oh no, sorry, I'm going to stop sharing this for 1 second and I can show you just where that project page is on the website. So are you seeing?
Yeah, it's showing.
Okay, so it's just under
Business and development. That was the one I was thinking.
business and development and projects. And then you can click on Chesterfield, Bakers, Tareyton, and it's in here. And the information about the project is here. And then you can click on the construction drawings to see them right like that. I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint now. Are you seeing the PowerPoint again?
Yeah.
Okay. So I see that there are still there's a question about, did this project prompt the township to recommend water sewer insurance policies? So thanks for your question. It wasn't specifically this project that the township partnered with the water and sewer insurance policy provider because of. That was just something that from an operations perspective, it was determined that that would be something that would be appropriate to recommend to residents.
Just to add, because I did have someone phone the office with a similar question, and they were concerned about potential damage during construction. So the way it works is anything on the township side of the property line that we would work on, obviously we're 100% responsible. And if for some reason during construction, the contractor damaged something on your property when they were doing the tie-in or something like that, or connecting to the curb stop, obviously we would repair that. So someone else had asked if they needed to get additional insurance or anything like that to cover damage from the construction, and that's certainly not the case. The water line and sewer line insurance offered by the township is just another optional product, but not related to the project.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. So I'll just give a few more minutes for anybody to either email questions or add them to the chat, or raise your hand if you'd like to ask verbally. And we'll just give a few more minutes for that at this point. Thanks.
Sorry, so I noticed there was a question in the chat. If the ditch and drainage pipe at the end of my lawn will be covered over, or will these all be moved to underground rather than above? So as part of the project, we did ask people to contact us, and a number of people have, and I do have a note in the project file where we keep track of people who have indicated they have sump pump lines or lines draining their roof drains, like rain gutters. And some people also have a pool flushing line or something like that. So as people call in and we keep track and we have a log, once we get to the construction phase and the contractor's been selected, they'll start going out and doing the locates, and you'll see the flags that you see on typical projects, the yellow ones for gas and hydro and all of that. At that point, we will follow up, and between the contractor and our staff, we'll make sure that we find out where all these are, and they generally mark them with some type of paint so that they can see them. And then as the project's progressing, once we get to those stages, so for example, if it drains into the ditch, we'll excavate and reshape the ditch around it. And then once we're finished, we'll put it back generally the way it is. So yeah, sump pump drain lines, roof drains, pool flushing are probably the common ones. One other thing we do ask that you let us know about is if you do have any in-ground irrigation systems or anything like that, because obviously we don't want to dig those up. For the in-ground irrigation system, it would be your responsibility to move, but if you have concerns, contact us and we can at least show you where we think the limits of excavation will be, so you know what areas to be concerned about. But yes, there's no plan to move them to underground. It's going to still remain open ditch, so there'll be no storm sewers or anything like that installed. Other than there's one section where the storm sewer from Amherst Drive crosses as it's sort of moving through, but the actual most of the street will just remain as open ditch. And I see there's a question about a tree. The contractor, or sorry, the consultant, when they surveyed the area, they pick up all of those sort of points. So they pick up trees and culverts and everything, just so when we're doing the design, we have an idea of where everything is. It doesn't necessarily mean the tree needs to be removed. It just means that somebody saw it and surveyed it. If you're concerned, give us a shout and we can sort of visit at your residence, or if you call in the office during office hours, I can bring it up on street view, and as long as it's reasonably recent, I can usually see the tree and generally give you an answer. But it is very much a case-by-case basis for trees. Unfortunately, it's hard to do in a public format like this.
Okay, so I think we'll just give another sort of minute or two at this point. There were a few more questions that filtered in. We'll just give another minute or two, say to sort of 10 after 7 at this point. If anybody has any further questions, if not, then we thank you for coming, and we appreciate your interest in the project, and we hope that you continue to reach out to us with any questions or concerns that you have throughout the project. Thanks so much.